June 8th, 1996, national championship, LSU. It's the bottom of the ninth inning, and a man steps up to the plate named Warren Morris, and he hits a walk-off home run to take the Tigers to the lead, 9-8 victory. And it is now, they say it's the home run that you can hear all across Baton Rouge and across the whole state of Louisiana. And he literally made history that day. And we have the privilege of sitting down with him to talk to him about what it means to be an actual champion, but also what it means to live as a champion. Warren Morris is on the podcast, and we are so excited about this conversation.
It was amazing to sit down and talk with Warren. I was extremely impressed. Hey, I'm not I love LSU from the standpoint that people that I love LSU, but I'm not a fan. I just don't know. I just don't know it. But whenever people found out that we were going down to talk to Warren Morris, I had so many people catch me and say, "Oh my gosh, will you? Oh, I can't believe you're meeting Warren. Oh my God." And they just were going crazy. I'm like, wow, this guy's a really big deal here in Louisiana. Then we sat down and talked with him, and I walked away and said, yeah, he's a really big deal. And I would say that his home run makes him a big deal. Playing on the Olympic team, winning an ESPY makes him a big deal. But you're going to see what really makes Warren Morris a champion, and that's what makes him a really big deal. I was super impressed. I think this is one of our best conversations from a champion who really gets it, and I think our folks are going to absolutely love this. Please share it with your friends. Tell them about it, because this has great impact in their lives.
There's no doubt. He is an incredible man, and I'm so thankful that you guys got to have such a great conversation to talk about what it means to be a champion. And so, man, I encourage you, whether you're an LSU fan, whether you're not an LSU fan, or you're just simply a baseball fan, you want to check out this episode with Warren Morris. He is he goes down in the history books. I know he's in the Louisiana Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He's in the LSU
brand new inducted,
Hall of Fame, and so go check out this conversation on the podcast.
This is obviously Warren Morris here with us today, and man, we're super excited about it. I was telling my church family that I'm obviously an Oklahoma fan, so heads up on that. But living here, Paul says I become all things to all people. So I keep up with LSU and know, and obviously know a lot. But we have a wide-ranging listenership, and that's exciting to see how God's using this. But I want them to hear your story, and I want them to hear about how God has used you, but more than that, how you use it for the glory of God. So you tell us where you grew up, tell us where you're from, and then we'll move right into that direction.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be on. Just looking forward to visiting with you, and any chance I get to share the story, I think God gives us all a story. So, hopefully I'm telling it and it's giving him the glory. But yeah, I grew up here in Alexandria, Louisiana, 2 hours from Baton Rouge, 2 hours from Shreveport, and it's always been home. Grew up, my parents, strong believers. They kind of had me later in life. I have one older brother who is 17 years older.
Oh,
so there's no one in between us.
Yeah.
So I like to say I was the surprise.
Yeah.
But I grew up, and my dad was a longtime high school basketball coach. Both my parents came from Mississippi. He came to Bolton High School here at Alexandria in the mid-'60s and coached for a long time. And I guess because of that, sports was always a big part of my life. I grew up loving sports. My first love was basketball. And, if you'd asked me as a first or second grader, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would have said, I want to play in the NBA. In fact, I didn't even start playing baseball until I was like 8 or 9. Okay. And there was a guy that I was friends with. His dad, Steve Boniel, was coaching a team, invited me to play, and I said yes for whatever reason. We had to stop at the store and get a glove for the first practice. I didn't even own a glove, and wasn't very good, bunted a lot that first year. But I kept playing basketball and baseball through high school. But I always think back, what if Mr. Steve Boniel would have never invited me to play baseball? I mean, the rest of my story, and really, it could have been all different. But maybe I always like to compete in whatever. I guess that's part of sports. So school was the same way. I tried to do the best I could on grades, and really that's probably how I ended up at LSU. I was on an academic scholarship the entire time I was there at LSU playing baseball, and was more or less a walk-on, invited walk-on there on the team. And I can remember walking in the first day and the first meeting wondering, man, these guys look a lot bigger than me. They look like they probably are 4 or 5 stars. I was probably like a 0 star.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who I was, if I was ever going to be good enough to play at that level. So that first year red-shirted and, but got to see what it was like to be on a team at that level. And we won the championship that first year. And, I didn't get one at bat or get one inning in the field, but I have a ring to prove I was on that team. But that was an important year for me to kind of see what I needed to do to get better. And, was able to play some the next year and end up being a starter there at LSU. But, definitely wasn't like a lot of kids in high school. You think, man, this kid's got a chance to be a major leaguer. Nobody thought that about me. I can tell you that. But, you work hard, you do the things, you listen to your coaches, and I got better.
Yeah. So I want to get to the obviously the moment where obviously you had a great career at LSU, and you don't ever want to just reduce it down to one moment because you had a great career, obviously playing for the Tigers. But I was telling some staff members that I was coming down here, and then some guys overheard it, and they were like, "Are you really going to meet with Warren Morris?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "Pastor, do you understand?" And each one of them told me a story of where they were in 1996 when you hit the walk-off home run in the College World Series with 2 outs. It was the perfect scenario, right? And you literally hit the walk-off to win LSU baseball championship that year. Walk us through that. Tell us about that just a little bit, because we've got a lot of Oklahoma fans, a lot of different people listening, but any sports fan, anybody that has a mindset of being a champion, we get opportunities, we get moments, and when you can take advantage of those moments and opportunities, man, great things happen. So tell us about it.
Yeah, and I was just like every other kid, any kid that's probably played baseball. You put yourself in the backyard, you say it's 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, you're down by a run, you throw up a rock, hit it with a stick, and, hope it goes over the fence, and, in your own mind, you're the champion.
The crowd goes crazy.
Right. And, for it to actually happen is really surreal, but I guess you kind of have to back up to see, where God was in all of it. Once I became a starter there and actually had some success at LSU in my second and third year. And one of the big things for me was I got invited to play on a USA national team, and we played on the summer, and this is the best of the best college players from all around. And we would play, the national teams from other countries. And so that season, in the summer, I had a really good season. And so coming into 1996, mainly because of that, all of a sudden, me, the kid who didn't know if I was good enough to play at LSU, is now looked at as a leader. I was named a preseason All-American, and I thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to work, right? You work hard and you get rewarded, and hey, this is going to be the season. Hopefully I'll lead us to the promised land. And about 12 games into that season, hit a ball off the end of my bat, get through, and I remember getting to first base and feeling something's not right. My hand didn't feel right, didn't feel like I had any strength in it. And so to kind of make the story, narrow it down, basically I didn't play for another month. They knew something was wrong, but they couldn't pinpoint what the issue was. So they just said, the doctors and the test, if we can't see anything broken, so you must have a ligament issue. If we just rest it, it'll get better. And so I sat out for a month, tried to give it another shot, played in a game, and it was worse. Like, it was to the point where just going to class to take notes, it was painful to write. And so they shut me down for another month. And that was, to me, in my testimony, that was kind of, I think, the point God was looking for me to get to all along. Because one night, after this 2 months of uncertainty and wondering if do I have some freak injury that I'm never going to be able to play again, just got on my knees and I prayed this prayer. I said, God, I don't know if you want me to keep playing or if you want me to just get my degree and, that's it. We'll just do something totally unrelated to sports. But I'm not carrying it anymore. I said, it's yours. And I stuck to that. Like, I felt like a load of bricks was off my shoulders. people would ask me after that, how are you dealing with this? And my answer was, it's going to be fine. It's going to work out. And as only God can do, 2 or 3 days after that, they sent me back to the hospital for another test. I felt like I'd done every test. Yeah. This one, the radiologist calls me in and he says, look at this. We haven't seen this on any of the others, but the problem is you have a broken bone in your hamate bone, which I didn't know what a hamate bone was. It's a common swinging injury. Golfers, baseball players get it. The good thing is we can have surgery. We take the broken piece out. Whenever the scar heals and you're able to swing, you can get back in there. But there was only like 30 days until we started our playoffs. And, major leaguers, Ken Griffey Jr., Jose Canseco had the same injury and the same surgery. Some guys come back in 30 days. Some guys, it takes 80 days. I said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I had the surgery, and 29 days later, we played in the regional. I was in there. Wasn't near 100%, but I was able to play and kind of bunt and do what I could. And, we win that game. We keep winning. We get to the College World Series, win those games, and we get to the championship game. And true story, that day when we took batting practice, because there's been more time along since the surgery then, I went up and I remember telling Coach Bertman, today is the first day I feel like I'm 100%. And sure enough, who's up to bat with 2 outs in the 9th inning, down by 1 run? And, home runs the last thing on my mind. I had hit no home runs all season. I've been injured,
Yeah.
And, that ball takes off, and I'm thinking, let's get to second base. I was batting 9th that day. That's the thing. You think, the 9-hole hitter, they got this. But, I the ball goes over that fence. I'm as shocked as anybody. I felt like my feet barely touched the ground going around those bases. You get to home plate. I mean, you're on the bottom of that pile. You can't breathe down there. Yeah. But it's just special for someone who had to watch and cheer on teammates all season and not play to be that exclamation point. But I guess I go back to, what if the doctors would have discovered that injury 1 week later? Or, a few days, like I wouldn't have been able to swing that day whenever that game was played. So, it's just crazy. And it's a great story. The guy who didn't know if he's going to get there, he gets the home run and people remember that. But there's so much more to it. And I don't know why God picked me or why, maybe it's so I have a story to tell and somebody else out there can think about, maybe God can use me in a way I don't see right now, but he sees it in the future. So, that's kind of in a nutshell how we got to that moment. And the coolest part about it all, other than us winning the championship, that's great. But you can't imagine the number of people, in the thousands, that have come up to me over the last 30 years and told me the same thing. I got to tell you, I remember where I was, what I was doing when you hit that ball. And about 80% of them all say they either hit their head or their hand on the ceiling fan because they all jumped up.
They all jumped up, yeah. And that was kind of the stories I heard of literally the shot heard around Baton Rouge, yeah. And I love the fact that you're giving God the glory, and that when you empty yourself of yourself and just say, okay, God, this is what really matters, right. And how you're using it for His glory, because it is a big deal. It's a big deal, and in LSU. For those of you guys listening, it's Southeastern Conference. That football's a big deal. But what I don't think a lot of people understand, unless you're here or you go to a game, baseball is equally a big deal in Louisiana. And I could even take you in some parts of Louisiana where baseball's king over football. And it's a really, really big deal because, LSU has such a great tradition. And, of course, you carried on, but also kind of excelled that tradition in a lot of ways. You and your teams, obviously, in such great ways with there. So you graduate, you're drafted. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. Tell us about the draft process, where you end up, and I know you ended up in Tulsa, up in my old stomping grounds for a little while.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, and just a whirlwind of a great summer. 1996 will go down maybe as my greatest summer because we hit the home run and win the championship. I get drafted that year in the 5th round by the Texas Rangers, and soon after that, I did make the Olympic team. So I played the summer before on the USA national team, and then, this was the Olympic year, 1996. The Olympics are in Atlanta, And really, before I knew it, it felt like it was probably, 4 to 8 weeks later, but we're in Atlanta walking in the opening ceremony, and I'm right there in the USA national team. And, still a lot of people, they love to talk about the LSU stuff, which is awesome. And, I got to play in the major leagues.
Yeah.
But that represent my country and just being an Olympian is still special to me. I can still remember running out on the field where the Atlanta Braves used to play their games, Atlanta in Fulton County Stadium, where Hank Aaron hit his famous home run. And, 50,000 people in your own country chanting USA. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it. And, we didn't, I always joke, I may one day tell my grandkids a small little lie that we won a gold medal, because it does look gold.
Yeah.
But we won third place, so we got a bronze medal. And, for a kid that just grew up loving watching sports on TV, and I remember thinking, man, if I could ever just go to the Olympics and sit in the seats, well, that would be awesome to watch. Never dreaming I would be in them, or let alone win a medal.
I've heard Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, many pro athletes, very thankful for pro careers, but they say the same thing. The highlight of their career was the Olympics, and that's interesting. That's interesting to think about. For us, all of us wannabes and things that we think back, and that's an incredible thing to represent your country in such a great way.
Yeah, and it's still something I take a lot of pride in.
Absolutely.
And so after that ended, now I had the opportunity to play pro baseball, and that again, I was like, wait a minute, let me make sure I understand this. So I'm going to play the same game I've been playing since a kid, but now you're going to pay me to do it? Sign me up. And you never really know, unless you're a superstar, you never know if it's going to be a year, 2 years, 3 years. I ended up getting to play 9 years of pro baseball, got to play in the major leagues for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Minnesota Twins, and Detroit Tigers, and just had a great career. As we were talking about, got to play in lots of minor league cities as well. My wife and I, we kind of had a special date, and I proposed in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was a member of the Tulsa Drillers in Double-A. Loved that place. It'll always have a special place in my heart. But, it's just great looking back for a kid that didn't even play base. I never played T-ball or any of that. I started all that late. But, to have the ability to do all these great things, it was just a blessing. And, people have asked me about, would you go through all the tough stuff with the injury and all to have it? Absolutely, because, it was such a blessing, that all the things that came with it and after.
Warren, we talk about winning, and, that life, you can either settle for a participation trophy, not just in life and sports, obviously, but in your marriage, in your Christian walk, you can either just, Paul says, to run the race to win. And that's what I'm hearing is what? I was given opportunities, and I went for the win. And I think that is so cool. But, one of the things we also talk about is we don't win every time.
Right.
And there's losses along the way, and difficult things, injuries and things like that. Talk to us about what winning looks like to you. Not only, obviously you've won the Olympics, the College World Series. You've won in life very well with a great family and a great walk with the Lord. Talk to us what winning looks like for Warren Morris.
Well, I think at a young age, my dad being a coach, I'm very thankful now, and he's not around anymore. But I saw a lot of other dads, and they meant well, but they almost like overparented or overcoached. They were from the bleachers telling their kid, "No, move over. You're putting your elbow right." My dad knew all that stuff, but he never said a word about anything like that. The only one thing he ever told me, and he was consistent with it, was he said, you just got to compete. And he meant that in everything, because I can remember him getting on me and said, if your chore is to make your bed, you need to make your bed as good as you possibly can make it. So I took that in anything. And I think that even goes in sports and all, whatever the score is, you got to compete, because you never know. You may be able to come back. But I don't know. I think in life, a lot of what we can do is just to be consistent. I think coaches always appreciated the fact that they knew what they were going to get from me. I, as a coach, I would prefer somebody that I knew was going to be consistently pretty good over somebody that one day they're going to hit 3 home runs, but for the next week they're going to strike out every time, you know? So I think in life, a lot of those same lessons transfer over. So I try to be consistent, be who I am, but also encourage other people. I think God put us here not just for ourselves, but to try to reach out. And, whenever we see somebody down, something as simple as a text, encouraging them, or inviting somebody to something, just like Mr. Steve Boniel invited me to play baseball. You never know how the power of an invitation may have something huge. It just brings me back to the story of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. It was just a little. The kid's probably like, well, what's this going to do? And God's like, I just need a little. I'll make it big from there. So I think that's our job. Just take the little you have, and he'll take it from there.
Wow. And the willingness to say, I want to compete at a high level. I was recently talking with a couple about their marriage, and I just looked at them. I said, look, if you guys are just going to keep dabbling in the Lord and dabbling in marriage, you're not going to make it. But if you'll get serious and go for the win with the Lord and go for the win in your marriage, that's going to be the difference maker for you. And I think for a lot of time, it's just that mindset that says, I got to go for this. So you're married, and tell us about your family.
So my wife and I, Julie, we have 3 beautiful girls. We have twins they're going to be seniors this year at LSU, and it was kind of neat. One of them, she's been a bat girl for the baseball team at LSU for 3 years, so that's neat to see another Morris on the field and enjoying that. And then our youngest daughter, Stafford, she'll be 11th grade in high school this coming year.
Okay.
It's been great to be back the same place where my wife and I grew up and raise our kids here, and be actually at the same church here at Calvary where I grew up.
Yeah. And so you're that mindset to win with your marriage and with your daughters. Talk about that, because one of the things that we want to challenge men to do is to be the men of God that God wants them to be, and to win with your family. Don't apologize about getting your head down and going for the win with your wife and your family.
Yeah, and just being present, I think, is a big part of it. I always,
Love that.
The chapter in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and it talks about love in there. I don't know, it was years ago, but the thing that just jumped out at me, and maybe it's because of my competitive nature, is when it says, keeps no record of wrongs. Yeah. And to me, that means love means not keeping score. And I think there was a time where I kind of started weighing the things. Well, I did this, and this for my wife. Like, I should be able to just coast now. But that's not what it says to keep no score. So I'm always reminded of that. And there's so many things that she does that I'm not even aware of. That she probably, it's a good thing we don't keep score, because she would be the one ahead. But I don't know. I think that's one piece of advice is, I think sometimes as humans and living in this world where we want to get ahead, or, hey, I'll do this for you, but you do that for me. I think we got to go back to what it says in that chapter, and just I try to tell myself, you're keeping score on things. You got to throw that out the window. It's like that we did the Rick Warren 40 Days of Purpose book a long time ago. The first words of that book are, it's not about me. Yeah. And so I think whenever you get in that mindset, it makes you where you want to serve your wife. You want to be a good dad. You want to say, okay, I know I had a tough day at work, but I'm not just going to veg out in front of the TV when I get home. This is when my next role is time to come. So,
Warren, just listening to you, and we've met in passing, here at church and different things, but just really getting to sit down and talk with you, and I'm so honored to do it. But I love you've brought up several scriptures. You've brought up your faith. We're obviously a faith podcast. We have a lot of people that don't, that aren't into faith. They're just tuning in maybe because of a guest or just because of even our title and what we're talking about. But so obviously your walk with Christ is a big win in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about how you came to know the Lord. You said at a young age, and then what does your daily walk with Christ look like as a guy who's experienced such high level of training and different things? What does that training look like in your walk with Christ?
Well, yeah, and as you mentioned, I was blessed to grow up in a great home. I mean, most of my friends that I hung out with all the time, they were in church. They had good parents that brought them to church. So in a way, I was fortunate of that, because I'm going to tell you, honestly, as a kid, I was a follower. Yeah. If my buddies would have been doing the bad things, I'd have probably followed along with them. But thankfully, They were doing the right things. But now, as I've aged, I think I hopefully am more of a leader, and I'm able to kind of see the difference from right from wrong. But I don't know. I think a couple of things I would encourage people. It does make a difference who you hang around with. Make sure that if you're a believer, you're with like-minded people. If you're just wondering what that's all about, I think if you can get in with a group of Christians in whether it's a Bible study, we have a men's group that meets every Friday. We met this morning. Just the wisdom that God sends through those men, it encourages me. I mean, we had a guy this morning that was talking about, guys, how do you deal with it when you have young kids and I got to work and my son is thinking all I like to do is work. I want to be with him. And, we said we've all been there, and we really have. But, just taking things from people all throughout my life. I can remember, it relates to baseball, but it relates to life as well. Coach Skip Bertman in LSU, he's big on acronyms. Yeah. He would use WIN, W-I-N, means what's important now. And for baseball, especially when you're in school, he said, when you're at home studying, you don't need to think about your pitch or, you need to focus 100% on your studies. Then in the game, that's your time to focus on the game. But at the same time, I think what's important now, whatever we're doing, just to be fully present, to be there, to be whenever someone's having that conversation with you, not to be thinking in the back of your mind, well, still got to do these things at work. That person probably needs your attention, and God's put them in front of you for a purpose and a reason. So I think about that a lot, that just what's important now from moment to moment that may change, but as long as you can keep the focus and God speaks through you, I think he uses us all.
That's so good. One of our traits of a champion is that, champions, one of the common things is their ability to focus. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, they don't focus on, so many things that they can't focus on what's important. But I love the acronym. I'm going to steal that because it's what's important now helps us stay focused. And it's all about prioritizing and setting those priorities about what's important. So thank you for that. That's incredibly – so you've obviously had some great champions in your life that have influenced you. You mentioned your dad, who I want you to talk a little bit more about his influence on your life. But who are some other champions that have influenced you, obviously in athletics? Because what I love most about athletics, and I'm unapologetically I'm a huge, sports guy, because of the life lessons that we've learned and the life lessons that we can learn from it. But so who are some great champions in sports, out of sports, that have influenced you not only in athletics but in your Christian walk, but in even your professional life and what you do now?
Yeah. Starting as a young age, my dad was very big in my life and looked up to him, and, just seeing him make time for devotion every day and praying, and, my mom as well, making sure that I was where I needed to be and in church. There was never a question growing up about whether we were going to go or not that Wednesday or Sunday to church. If the doors were open, we were there. And, now I look back and see how key that foundation was. But then, beyond that, just the different coaches in my life. I had a coach when I was 13, 14 years old named John Wingard. He was the first coach I think I had that really made the game almost like it was a strategy. It was a battlefield. Like, if you can be better at this, then it's going to help us be better as a team and all of that. And then, I had a high school coach, Dennis Breland, go to LSU, Skip Bertman. I always say I learned more than just education in baseball, but like an education in life. And, those things, he always said, if you take care of the little things, the wins and losses will take care of themselves. And I mean, how key is that? Like, that's the same thing that makes you a good parent or makes you a good friend or an employee. But then besides that, on the spiritual end, my youth pastor here at Calvary, David Brooks, I mean, just phenomenal, just how he spoke into our lives and was just there for us when we needed him. Yeah. And then moving on to LSU, we had he's a friend now, but our chapel leader, Charlie Clary. I can't tell you how many, he's probably married more baseball players than anybody in the country, just because he knew how to bring people in. He's very easily approachable, but at the same time, he's someone I could still reach out to. And he asked me a few weeks ago through a text, what is a good book that y'all been doing as a men's group? I want to get a group of guys together. And so we're still sharing. So it's just neat to see how you go from almost a teenager and looking up to somebody to now your peers and your friends with them.
Yeah. You talked, you mentioned about that chaplain that, influenced your life. That's so critical. We're one of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do is to, through this podcast and some other speaking opportunities is to, be able to move around and see, there's a real move of God going on. And I'm really excited. And I think chaplains, I think coaches, I'm obviously as an Oklahoma fan, very partial, but one of the things that I love, not because of she's Oklahoma, but because she's such a strong Christian, is our softball coach, Patty Gasso, and how she, a lot like Skip, yes, we're going to teach you how to play the game really well, but if you leave here just a really good baseball player, what have we done? Right. I mean, we want you to be great in life. And so to see those transition, one of the traits we talk about, that great champions not only win themselves, that we lose too, but we also we understand the importance of helping others to win and the influence. And so to see them influence you, talk to us about your intentional influence and people and how you do that with that. I know you're very involved in church here, and this is a great church. Calvary in Alexandria is a fabulous church. I love your pastor, not only because he married my son and his wife, but also just because he's a great friend and a great man. But talk to us about how you influence people, not only in the church, but just all around, and using your story.
Yeah, and it goes back, and we say it all the time in our men's ministry here, that the verse about as iron sharpens iron, so men sharpens us together. And I just think we have a responsibility. It's almost like if you had something really good news, you're not going to just hold it in. I got to tell somebody about this. And so many times I've just thrown out an invitation for a guy, hey, why don't you just come check out our group? And you can tell they're reluctant, like, man, are you seriously want me to wake up at 6 a.m. for this? But pretty soon you start seeing the guys coming, and now he's telling somebody else about it. And, all I did was take that first step. And I think that's all God asks us to do, because he takes it from there. We're never going to be able to change someone's heart. That's his work. But, I feel like, and we talked about this morning in my men's group, if I had to walk through this life, and it's not an easy life, being a Christian doesn't make it any easier, but if I had to walk through it and I didn't have Christ with me, wow, I'm going alone. I don't want to do that. And I think people out there that they realize they don't have to do that. And if they see through us what Christ can do, I think it opens the opportunity for them. And, whether it be, a story they hear that they can relate with, a lot of times our guys say, man, I wish I would have found Christ earlier, and then I would have been on the path sooner. But my response is, but then you wouldn't have the story to tell that somebody else needs to hear. Wow. So, there's lots of ways that we can reach people. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a family member. But I just feel like all we have to do is take that first step. And then from there, God takes it. And his timing is not ours. I've got friends that I pray for and I try to reach out to, and I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall. But if I get a no for 10 years and then on the 11th year they say yes, was it worth it? You better believe it was worth it. So we can't just say after 2 weeks or a month or 3 years, they're never changing. You just got to keep the invitation out there and keep working and see what God does.
That's so good. And I want to just say that thank you for all the folks tuning in. And maybe you don't know Christ. Maybe this whole religion thing's not your thing. I hope you heard what he said there, that one of the things we challenge you to do is, if we had the cure for cancer, we wouldn't keep it to ourselves. That would be very cruel and absolute. We love people. No, you don't. If you have a cure for something, you don't give it to us. Well, we feel like we have the cure for the most painful and awful disease there is, and it's called sin, and we have a cure for it. Not that it can stop you from sinning, but that it can forgive you and reconcile you back to God. And so that's what we talk about. That's what we're so passionate. That's the greatest win of life, obviously, that you're sharing. And so I was recently in a Uber, of all things, in a foreign country with a person of a different faith, a Muslim. And we left and prayed for her and at least asked her to at least talk to Jesus. Would you at least just talk to him and see if he'll show himself? And so maybe you're listening. I challenge you, just reach out to the Lord and ask him. Say, Jesus, if you're real, show yourself. I believe that strongly that he wants to show himself to that, just like he's done in our lives, Warren, and so many things. So let me get to some something I'm just curious about. Got a lot of young families in our church, deal with a lot of young athletes. My son and I tried not to be that dad in the stands. And the funny thing is I know football really well, and I was really good at not getting involved in football. I coached him, but I just do your thing. I was not as talented in baseball, but it seems, and know as much, and it seems like that's probably where I overcoached and overstepped with him, but tried to not do that because I wanted him to, at the end of the day, still go fishing with me and hang out and hunt with me. But I see a lot of this. I can tell you, even for us many, many years ago in 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old baseball, every kid on the team, especially when you get into all-stars, was headed to play for the LSU Tigers. And then they were going to get drafted by the Yankees in the first or second round. And the truth is, it's just not going to happen. It's just a very, very rare deal. What do you see, and what do you tell parents about this year-round baseball, the travel ball? I'm understanding now these kids are playing 100 baseball games in a spring and summer league, and they're kids, right. And they are really so. And again, that may be a good thing. I don't know. I literally don't know. I made my son sit out. I made him season, then move on. Let's go. We're baseball. Let's go baseball. All right, we're football. Go football. We're basketball. Go basketball. Put the football down. Go get a basketball. Just for nothing else. Just didn't. Move on, do something else. So right. What's your advice on that? You're a pro athlete, a College World you did play for LSU, so talk to parents about that.
Nah, I mean, it's just my opinion. I think you're better just athletic-wise if you diversify and you play more than one sport. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand where a kid wants to just focus on one, but I would say if he has any desire, even if he's not great at another sport, think about it. It gives your body a break in the repetitive nature of what you do over and over and over in a season. Like for me, now I loved basketball. I still played baseball. When I played basketball, I didn't touch a bat. I didn't touch a ball. So all of that season, still active. I'm still doing things. I'm actually using muscles I don't use in baseball. But it gives all those baseball things a break. And then mentally, more than anything, you get a break. And so once baseball season started, put the basketball aside, I was all in on baseball. So for me, I never burned out. Mm-hmm. The first time that I ever strictly played baseball was when I got to LSU. And, by then you're almost 20 years old. Yeah. I wonder if a kid's playing 100 games a year, if that's maybe too much. And then the other thing I would just offer as advice, and I had a high school coach just recently, one of my friends tell me this recently, and he said, and I know you're all well-meaning whenever you want to coach from the stands and, remind them of things and tell them, he said, the best thing you can do as a parent is to be a fan and just cheer them on. Tell them good job. I'm the coach. That's what this high school coach says. I'm the coach. Let me be the coach. You just be a fan. Yeah. You tell them they're doing great. Don't criticize. I think that's what kids need more than anything. They need someone that's going to be their biggest fan. And again, I can say that. My mom, there was nobody a bigger fan than me. She never gave me a piece of advice about how to hit the fastball that's away from you or anything like that. Yeah. But I didn't need that. I had coaches for that. So that's what I would say, just those two pieces of advice. I mean, it's simple, but I think it's powerful.
I love that. Thank you, Warren. I tell the story, and I actually said it in my book, that my son was in Little League Baseball, and he'd had just a rough practice. They had him, he went from, pitching and then to catching, and then they hit, and we got in the car, and I was like, son, you've got to load on your swing. You're not loading fast enough. You've got to get that bat up. And then, man, when the ball's coming to you, son, you are not even squaring up. You're flat-footed. You're not even squaring up. Come on now. You got to – and I just kept on. And he finally looked at me, Warren, and he said, hey, Dad, did I do anything right? Right. And I determined right then, I thought, well, you jerk. what are you doing to him? And I'd turn them on, and my kids, when they got home from ball, we didn't talk ball. And he'd come home from Friday nights, biggest game of the season in high school, and I didn't bring it up. He brought it up. If not, we talked about Oklahoma the next day, who we were watching the next day, what he's eating, or whatever he wanted to talk about. And usually it had to do with hunting or something. But he didn't want to talk it with his dad. He wanted to talk other things. And so I determined early on I was going to stop being that. So I hope parents hear that. They need a parent. They've got coaches.
Right.
And for Pete's sakes. And you know what? And I also found out two things, and I hope you basically said this. Any kid that's getting recruited, first of all, they want them in all kinds of sports. Mm-hmm. They don't want them just in one. Second thing is that if they're good enough, 100 games a year is not gonna make a difference. Mm-hmm. It's just not.
No.
They're going to excel. They're going to put themselves, and if they've got the talent and they're able to do it, and colleges will find them, and they will there. So I know a young man that's so good, and he did not have a normal path. He actually ended up at a junior college, ended up walking on, and actually had a fabulous career, but did not in any way was on the radar. You know, you're talking about 0 stars and all that and other stuff. Well, Warren, thank you, man. I'm a fan from the standpoint, not from the LSU side, because I just didn't know it, but just the way you handle yourself, and
thank you.
And I can tell you, my son is very impressed with you. I know Jeff, who I respect very, very much, talks about that not only you're a great champion in that the world sees, but you're a great champion with your spouse, with your kiddos, with your wife, and then also in life with Christ. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And appreciate your time. So I tell all of our folks, just give us some parting shots about winning. Talk to us about winning and what winning. Just any advice you want to say. Just anything to our listeners about winning. And again, thank you for your time, my friend.
No, I thank you for all the kind words, and I'll say two things on winning, and one of them, as you mentioned, my friend Jeff Drawn, he reminds us as men in our men's ministry of this all the time. One of the best things that we can do on a daily basis, every day with our kids, is to remind them of 3 things: I love you, I'm proud of you, and you're good at fill in the blank. Because they're all good at something. And we all love to tell them whenever they're not doing something right because we think we're correcting them and making them better. But really, they need to hear what they're good at more than that. That's what they need. I think the other thing about, winning is you just have to put yourself in the game. You can't be afraid to fail. I don't know how many times Coach Bertman told us that at LSU. He used to tell the pitchers, and I would soak in everything. That's probably my best attribute looking back, is I was very coachable. Yeah. Like, I knew somebody knew what they were talking about, and I didn't know everything. So I took in what they said, and I would use it. And I can remember him telling the pitchers, hey, one day you're going to throw 94, 95 miles per hour. But until then, let's go work on your changeup, work on the other pitches. So I think in the same sense, you can't be afraid to listen to somebody that has a different way of doing things. You can't be afraid to try something that's out of your comfort zone, because especially, in church or anything, they're going to say, hey, would you be willing to do this? And your first thought is, well, that's not well, maybe that person is asking you because God thinks that's what you need to do. He wants to put his power first, not yours. So I just love that quote. And, Michael Jordan even said it. The reason I'm successful is because I'm not afraid to fail. So, any of those things, and there's lots of cliches we could throw out, but it's just a matter of understanding that we have a God above that cares about us. He's with us all the time. And good or bad, he's using that for our betterment and for those around us. And, if I can be an assistance or help somebody else in their life, then it's all worth it.
Yeah. The Bible reminds us that, we make our plans, but God guides our steps. And brother, God has guided your steps. And it's so awesome to see God's hand and his fingerprint and all over your life. So thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for that. And I appreciate the champion that you are, my friend. And just appreciate you pouring into us and allowing us just to pick at you and just listen to your great wisdom there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Traits of a Champion podcast, helping you pursue the wins in life. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe. You can also follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram, or watch our episodes on YouTube.